All right, everybody. We have come to the conclusion of the 2022 NFL season, one that has brought us yet again a losing season and yet again not a berth to the playoffs. So, big news, that just got kind of announced this morning that Lynn was mentioning here in chat before we went live is that the Browns have informed Bernie Kosar that his services are no longer needed for the pre. And I'll read Bernie's tweet 1 hour ago. Steelers game day yet once again, I was informed by the Browns that my services are no longer desired or needed. I will not be doing today's radio program. I am shocked and disappointed. Crying face. Brown and orange is my life. You matter. Kosar19.com. Bernie Kosar Show. Go Browns. So the Browns have essentially fired Bernie again for whatever reason. This makes whatever sense, right? I don't know what the situation is. I get Bernie's struggling, with all the CTE stuff. He doesn't sound great when he's on the radio. I tuned in last week. I heard him, talk to Ken Carmen and those guys because I was in the car, and that's why I wasn't live last week doing the pregame show and the postgame show because I was driving home from Tennessee. But nonetheless, my dad's going to be joining us in a little bit. He's just a little bit late this morning. So the Browns have effectively fired Bernie Kosar, and I'm sure people aren't thrilled about that. It's just a classless thing. Yeah, it's just very weird. Very, very weird. But here we are, week 17. The Browns are going to have a losing season. I want to see. There's a lot of players not playing today. Let's see check the injury report. So Denzel Ward is listed as questionable. I doubt he'll play. They ruled out Jack Conklin. Isaiah Thomas is out. So we'll get James Hudson over there at right tackle. Third start of the season, 7th of his career. And he's going to go up against TJ Watt. So, yay. Conklin's been a guy it's been tough keeping him healthy. I think he's decent when he's out there, but keeping him healthy is difficult. I'd be shocked if Denzel Ward would play today. They officially have listed Isaiah Thomas and Jack Conklin out. Amari Cooper was limited in practice. Dearness Johnson, who has done nothing all year. Posick he didn't practice. He had an illness. He did practice, full practice on Friday, so he's fine. And then Jadeveon Clowney was the other big news, who just quit. He just quit on the team. He said, screw it, I'm out. And that's a whole nother thing. I'd love to hear what you guys think about that. I mean, my thoughts are, he was a mercenary from the start. He was a hired gun that, for all intents and purposes, we thought was going to be that 1-2 punch with Myles Garrett. And that, I'm sure, is what is how they sold it to him. Saying, listen, you did great with J.J. Watt on one side, for the beginning of your career when you were healthy. Or he did the best he could. I think Jadeveon Clowney is probably one of the biggest busts, one of the biggest hype-related busts in NFL history. Let me explain. It's not that he didn't have an okay career where he made a couple Pro Bowls, and when he was actually on the field, he could be effective. So he didn't seem like he was, complete like a lazy player or anything like that. However, to be drafted first overall, and then to watch a guy like J.J. Watt, who J.J. was drafted, he was the 11th pick. So he was a first-round draft pick, but not the first overall. There's a big difference between a first overall and the 11th pick in a draft. So JJ had outshined him. JJ's a Hall of Famer. JJ's a defensive player of the year, multiple time guy. He's a monster. He He played. I don't know how many seasons he played. How many did he play here? I mean, just like the career highlights are off the charts. So I mean, when you look at that, even TJ Watt, to be honest, he's another first round pick, but late first round pick, significantly outplayed Jadeveon Clowney. Jadeveon Clowney had that one hit in one game in college, and everybody lost their damn mind and said he's going to revolutionize the game. He's going to be the next, Lawrence Taylor. He's going to be the next blah blah blah, and it never really happened. So if we can all remember, though, back in 2019, when the Browns were starting to put together the super team, so we thought, Jadeveon Clowney was available. And he was courted heavily by the Browns. And yet he chose to go to the Titans. And then he played one season for the Titans. Again, I think it was a 1-year deal he signed with them. And I remember talking to a Titans friend of my dad's, who when we finally got him the next year, it was you can have him. We don't care. He never put it all out there. We never got the level, like a high end, 12 to 15 sack production that we were hoping to get out of a guy like that. And he just never made it happen. So then he comes to the Browns to be on side of, there you go, Myles Garrett, and to take a little heat off of him. So when they double team Myles Garrett, who is the most double teamed player in the NFL on defense, statistically provable, Jadeveon Clowney should have been able to go nuts, and he didn't. He had 9.5 sacks last season, which was nice when he was out there. He only played 14 games. He didn't play the whole season again. That's the other thing. It's like you need these guys to be out there. You need them to be out there and effective. A guy like, if you compare him to like a Jason Pierre-Paul, who may not have as big a name and hype as a Jadeveon Clowney, but that guy's just productive and effective, and he plays with half a finger missing. I mean, it's guys like that. And that's the thing about this Browns team that I think, if it really strikes me over the last couple of years of what the team decided to do and the path to rebuild, building the Browns, going out and getting star power on the team is fun, but it hasn't really translated other than that 2020 season, the COVID year, where we ended up making the playoffs with Odell Beckham injured. And that season, earlier in that season, when things weren't going so great, they were kind of touch and go because we thought we were going to blow everybody out of the water, and we didn't. And then he got hurt in the Bengals game. Then we came back and we won that game, and then the rest of the season kind of turned out to be what it was. So Odell didn't help us at all. That, I mean, early in the season when he was there, maybe the Dallas game, but if you look at it, I mean, it was like let's bring in the star power, and then they just turned into a pedestrian team, right? So now we have to look back to see what are we gonna do, what are the Browns gonna do next year? Because that's really all this was, and this is what I was most afraid of this whole season, was that they were gonna look at this season as a wash. Okay, this season is just let's just hopefully compete, hopefully get there, so when Deshaun gets here next year, everything's golden, okay? And we all thought it was going to be the play of Jacoby Brissett. Like, Jacoby's just not going to get it. He's going to be the guy. It's like having one of those mediocre backup, bums like we used to have back in the day, who were just average, terrible players. The Charlie Frys, the Cody Kesslers, those guys that you're trying to hype yourself up that they can be good and they're not. So that's what we thought Jacoby Brissett was, a lot of us. And we were like, man, if we could just get a couple. But it wasn't on Jacoby. Jacoby played as good as he could play. Was he perfect? No. Was he the thing that could drive us to victories? Not really. All he did was manage the game. His stats were okay. But our team was let down by the defense and special teams, period. Our kicker was well below the league average, and he missed really critical kicks in really critical times. And they weren't like the 70-yard kicks where we're like, well, we got this kid, he can kick it to the moon, so just let him kick it from the middle of the opposite side of the field. These were like 40-yarders, right? And I get it. The Browns kick outside and there's winds and there's stuff like that. But a lot of those kicks, everybody look back to this year with Cade York. He shanked some, like kicked knuckleball, middle of the ball, and just, 20 yards one direction. Okay. So our defense and our special teams. We had a fumble on special teams. We had an onside kick we couldn't recover. We had a fake punt that we fell victim to. It's been nonstop. It really has been nonstop here. And Mike Prefer is going to have a lot to answer for. And I think that was one of the things about the article that Mary Kay put out about Jadeveon Clowney when she interviewed him about stuff. He was alluding, hey David, that there's going to be changes next year to the Browns. And he didn't specifically call out Joe Woods, but he definitely said that the way that he felt that he was being utilized was because the scheme of the Browns was to get Myles Garrett to the Hall of Fame. And that's an interesting way to say it. He didn't say just to feature Myles Garrett and give him the opportunities. He said that, but then he went to the next step, which was they only care about padding Myles Garrett's stats and keeping him happy. And to me, that may or may not be true. I don't know. It may be that Jadeveon Clowney just thinks very highly of himself and isn't as effective as he thought he could or should be because he believed his own hype. That could be as well. But I think that all in all, systemically, the Browns still have a big problem. And so when you think about organizations, you think about, hey, when there's culture issues at organizations, when there's players that are just outright quitting. Jadeveon Clowney just quit. He said, this is an irrelevant game. I don't want to put my body on the line. He even quoted, and I was like, well, he's made all the money. He doesn't give a crap. He quoted in the article, I've made my money. And that's the thing. He was a paid mercenary that, similarly to the Kenny Britts, of the world, who came to the Browns and then just did nothing. And was not productive and not interested in playing. Opposite of what a guy like Amari Cooper did. Amari Cooper has been incredibly impactful this year. Let's take a look at Amari Cooper's stats. I hate that Google puts ESPN.com as the first link, organic link for players. I don't want that. I want ProFootballReference.com. I'm just looking for stats. I'm not looking for the crap and I have to click another button for stats. ESPN is so stupid about that. Just give me the damn stats. So this year for the Browns, he has 76 receptions. Right? We have never had a player have 90. If he has 14 receptions today, he breaks the Browns' all-time single-season reception record. Now, 14 receptions is a huge game. However, think about this. In a game that doesn't matter, now, again, that will probably feel weird too, but Peyton Manning, when he had to take care of Reggie Wayne, he threw him the ball 10 times in a row and just gave him the catches. So, it's not like we can't try to do something like that. But if he happens to have some crazy game, whereas this season he did have one game where he caught 8 balls. One game he caught 9. He caught 9 against the Jets. Right? So, it's not crazy to think 14 balls could end up in his hands. It would be crazy. Right? And it would be the most productive. It would not be the most productive year of Amari Cooper's career. He had 92 receptions for the Cowboys 2 years ago. But, I got to tell you guys, with 76 receptions, 9 touchdowns, maybe you can get a 10th. It's the most touchdowns he ever had in his career. That's a player that was worth every penny, and we traded a 5th round draft for him. Jadeveon Clowney, on the other hand, didn't. So I guess my point here is, you got to be able to find the guys, the character guys. You got to be able to sniff them out. If you didn't want to come to the Browns the first time, don't go after him again. Don't go after him and do it. Now, everybody would argue, hey, that was awesome what he did last year, the 9 sacks and everything. Maybe. But clearly, when things started spiraling in the wrong direction, Jadeveon Clowney said, I don't want to be any part of this. And for him to have gone to that Ravens game and said, I'm only playing on third downs, I'm not playing on first and second. I'm sorry. That is, and he was not injured. Like Chris Kiffin thought he was injured. He wasn't. Jadeveon Clowney should be shunned from the city of Cleveland for the rest of his life. He's a waste of time. Andre Rison, Kenny Britt. Who are the other guys? There was another wide receiver that came in too that was an absolute joke. I can't remember. I always forget the last guy. I want to say it was like, I can't remember. I don't want to say it. So anyway, it's going to be interesting. And then we've got the next season to look forward to with Deshaun. Now, I will tell you this, guys. Looking at the last game, Browns. Look at the last game stats. Okay. Where we lost 17. No, I'm sorry. 20. We won 24-10. I'm just thinking back to the Saints game. 24-10. Again, I was on the road. I wasn't watching. I was listening to it. First game I'd listened to on the radio in a long time. Deshaun Watson. Braylon Edwards. Hey, Braylon Edwards had a season for us, though. Dude, look up Braylon Edwards 2017. That was probably the best wide receiver season any wide receivers ever had for the Browns. Braylon Edwards. I'm going to look at it because every time I look at it, it makes me mad. Dude had 16 touchdowns for us that year. 80 receptions, 1,200 yards. Braylon Edwards was looking to be a Hall of Famer after that season. We were like, oh my God, we have ourselves a stud bucket in Braylon Edwards. Meanwhile, he played for a lot of years from 2005 to 2012. He amassed 40 total touchdowns, 16 of which came in one season. Poor guy. So Deshaun last week. Let's talk about Deshaun last week for a second, okay? Better than Josh Gordon? Oh yeah, that season in 2017 or 2007. I'm gonna just check. I want to say is better than anything Josh Gordon ever did for us. Josh Gordon in 2013 had 9 touchdowns, 87 receptions. He had a lot more yards than Braylon. He had 400 more yards, so he had 1646. But I mean, 9 touchdowns to 16. Josh Gordon did have that 95-yard touchdown, which was awesome. I remember that. But that was again an amazing. I mean, you can't if you're gonna put together an all-time Browns players from the last 24 years, like since they've been back, Josh Gordon and Braylon Edwards, if you just take them by one season, have got to be the 2 starting wide receivers. Then you probably put in Jarvis as the 3rd, maybe in the slot. I can't imagine anybody played better than Jarvis. Now thinking back. I mean, you got your Dennis Northcutts. You got your Josh. I mean, you had Travis Benjamin was in there. Andre Davis was in there, right? But, I mean, you'd say the 2 guys were Braylon Edwards in 2007 and 2013, Josh Gordon. And those guys, if we could have taken that, put that into a bottle and said, drink this for the rest of your career, we would have won Super Bowls. That's how good those guys were. Unfortunately, both of them fell apart. Josh Gordon with the drugs and everything, and Braylon Edwards just knucklehead. Anyway, going back to the last game against the Commandos, we had Deshaun Watson came on strong in the second half. So first half, it was a tale of 2 halves because the first half we scored 3 points. 3 points in the first quarter, 0 points in the second. And that's what they did in the second half of the Commanders. They scored 0 points in the third and 3 points in the fourth. We won 24-10. That was a very comfortable game, I think, in terms of the second quarter or second half. Deshaun was only 9 of 18 for 169. Okay? 3 touchdowns. 3 touchdowns are what saved him. And a lot of those touchdowns were yards after catch, too. Because Amari Cooper's was a complete, Kyle Fuller fell down. And without Fuller falling down, Amari wouldn't have gone there. He wouldn't have got all the way. Looks like my dad's trying to join. Dad, I don't know if you can hear me. Yeah, hold on a second. Let me switch you over to my to the game chat here. Yep, we can hear you. Can't see you. That's fine though.
Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with my camera. It's not working.
Yeah, no worries. So I was just talking about what Deshaun did last game, and the last two quarters. There we go. We got you. Last two quarters of the last game where we put up 21 points with those 3 touchdowns. If that's what we're going to get from Deshaun next year, and we get that level of play in those 2 quarters next year, I think it'll be very good. That's classic what Deshaun can do, and it kind of makes sense. It's taken this long for that type of production to show up. You know, thinking back to how many games he's been 1, 2, 3, 4 full games. So 4 games and 1/2 it took for Deshaun Watson to really show up. Right?
Yeah. I just, we're in our typical situation here at the end of the season. The playoffs are out of reach. We're sitting here playing, for us, a meaningless game, except it's against Pittsburgh.
It's meaningless for them too.
Yeah. So there's not much going on. You have to hope that nobody gets hurt. We started out the year. I mean, 22 was just terrible year all the way around, from start to finish. The trade for Deshaun Watson, the cutting loose of Baker, the Jets game we went to that we lost in the last 2 minutes, to the mediocre play of Watson when he did come back. I mean, it's just no defensive changes. I mean, it's just a typical ending to a Browns season over the last 25 years, maybe with one playoff chance with Baker a couple of years ago. And that's it. We're right back to where we started.
Mm-hmm.
We got uncertainty to a degree at quarterback. Who knows who's going to show up today or how they're going to do next season. It's a wasted season, total, just terrible season from start to finish, and nothing to look forward to other than Watson playing. He's got to play out of his mind. If they don't make serious changes this summer, coming up, to get maybe even in prep of the draft. I mean, I hate to say this, but I almost hope they trade Myles Garrett.
Mm-hmm.
I think if they could get 2 draft choices for him, a first rounder and a second, trade him. He's been sort of a disappointment. I mean, if you want to glorify the sacks, all right, glorify the sacks, but they don't win games most of the time. And he's playing 50%.
And that's the thing. Points win games. And yet I cannot believe I was sitting there yelling in my car that we actually took points off the board.
Right.
That is the cardinal sin of coaching from high school level all the way up through the pros. That is the one thing you never do, is take points off the board. That just tells you right there, Dad, how aggressive Stefanski thinks that he needs to be to win games, right? If he thought that instead of being 6-0, right, he should have been to try and then not have a play that's guaranteed, right? Having even if it's high percentage, they didn't get it.
Well, I mean, that
points off. It's crazy to me.
Typical of the whole season, going for it on 4th down, making it maybe 50% of the time, whatever. But to continue with, trade Myles Garrett, He's been a distraction. He hasn't really been a game disruptor to the extent that maybe a Aaron Donald is, or Watts or Watt, either one of them, either one of the brothers. I mean, he gets a sack every once in a while, and then he's got to sit out and he's got to take a breather, and then he lets people run around him, whatever. So if you could get a first round draft choice, get a second rounder, you get two plug and play players, one on offense, a wide receiver to be there with opposite of Cooper, a speedster, a guy who can catch the ball, first rounder, get a defensive guy with your second round, or maybe you get the defensive guy first if there's somebody's outstanding in this this draft coming up, and go from there, because if we don't get rid of Woods and get a new defensive coordinator that's going to bring aggressive defensive play, I don't care. Watson's going to have to put up 50 points a game to overcome our defense, because our defense was terrible this year, and no changes, just the same old.
Well, it's like this. It's like back in the day, like the old saying was, you can't really win in football unless you have a good offensive line and a good defense.
Right.
And those are the two they're not sexy positions. They're not sexy things to fill, right? To have your teams win 12-9, it's not that fun. Like when the Ravens won the Super Bowl with Flacco and not a single guy I can name on offense,
right?
Or Trent Dilfer when he won. That was really the better one. I want to go see like Trent Dilfer Super Bowl. Okay. I just want to look at the stats from that particular game. But anyway, there was nobody on that team, but everybody remembers the defense because the defense is so darn good. Or like the Bears, well, the Bears actually had really good offensive players that year, but everybody remembers the Bears defense. Okay. You got to build a good offensive line and good defense. We have a good offensive line that's hurt all the damn time.
Right.
And at this point, I mean, I give Jedrick Wills a hard time and everything. And I want to be perfectly honest to everybody. I'm not trying to root against players, but when I see players that are walking around on the field, giving up on plays, not trying, and getting beat consistently, and then having like false start penalties, holding penalty, like I'm over the guy. He's not very good. He was drafted 10th overall the season that he was drafted. You cannot do that.
Right.
You can't have a guy that's drafted that high. Then you get a guy like Wyatt Teller, who was drafted nowhere.
Right.
And then have him come in there and make Pro Bowls.
I just
5th round pick. Wyatt Teller was a 5th round pick in 2018, and he's making Pro Bowls.
Well, again, you got Chubb, who's got only a couple of years left before age catches up with him. You're going to pay Watson next year $230 million, one fourth of $230 million, because he only got paid $1 million this year for the first year. He got nothing because he was out most of it, which is a good move on the Browns' part. But next year they're going to pay him.
They're going to pay him $46 million next year base salary. With a $9 million signing, $8.9 million signing bonus for a total of $54 million.
He better bring it. And I don't know how much
that's
they're
Pat
paying.
Mahomes money. I mean, that's money that it's like we are just putting it all on one guy.
Right. And Miles gets a ton of money. So does Ward. They've got to do something on defense. I mean, I don't even think I want to root for them or watch them next year if they're not going to replace Woods as far as defense is concerned. They got to make a move, because they can't win on the back of one or two players. And it's Watson and Chubb. Hunt's going to be gone. Greedy Williams is going to be gone. Not that he was a big impact anyway, but they're just, we thought Pittsburgh was on the decline. Well, guess what? They're gonna probably kick our butts today. They got a better defense than we have. I think their their team is coached better than ours.
Yeah.
You got disarray with us between Myles Garrett and Clowney on one side, who thinks he doesn't get enough attention. Another Odell type move where you spend a lot of money for a name and they don't produce necessarily. And so he's going to be gone next year. So, I mean, I hate to see Miles go, but the fact that he had got into a car accident, almost killed himself and killed another person, and lost a game or two because of his injury and the accident. I mean, that's not stuff that you build your team around. I mean, you got to have some solid players that are leaders and that play hard each and every week that don't necessarily get hurt. But you know, I just don't know. I mean, I've been a fan for 60 years
Mhm.
through thick and thin,
Mostly thin.
and once the Bernie Kosar days were over.
Oh, did you see the Bernie Kosar news today, Dad?
No,
So tweeted out. This is Bernie. I'll read it again for anybody who's new. I mean, I can't find it.
mid 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 plug thinks I'm the most negative Browns fan to come across in some time. Well, I can't believe that there's too much mids plug that you're happy about this year. If you'd heard me in prior years or been around, I'm
There's
a,
only so,
I'm a
there's only
diehard
so much you can
Browns
take.
fan.
Yeah.
So
There's only so much player like the fans can take. I mean,
right.
we got all excited in 2019 when we got Odell and we had Baker, Odell, Jarvis, Chubb, Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward. We're all excited in 2019 and that didn't go well. 2020 we turned it around and then fell right back apart the next year. And it's like there's only so they can't get us excited and then continue to crap on us. But anyway, Dad, here's the Bernie Kosar news. So he tweeted out Steelers game day. Once again, I was informed by the Browns that my services are no longer desired or needed. I will not be doing today's radio program. I am shocked
Wow.
and disappointed. Crying face. Brown and orange is my life. You matter. Kozar19.com. Bernie Kosar Show. Go Browns. So they just, for whatever reason, the Browns decided that the last game, and not even like just not even let him finish out the season and say, "Hey, Bernie, we're just going to go a different direction next year."
Another guy thrown under the bus, an icon, a guy who came out in the supplemental draft from Miami, graduated in 3 years, really smart guy, and played his heart and soul. You saw the injury diagram that we put up, last week or the week before about all the concussions and knee operations and elbows and everything else that he put, and they throw him up under the bus like that. That's
The
I
last
don't
game of the season.
Yeah, terrible. I mean, I thought it just makes me even more negative to hear that type of news, and the fact that we struggled ever since Bernie was gone to get another quarterback, and we get one in Baker, and we throw him under the bus after he gets hurt and plays his heart out with a busted shoulder. Takes us to the playoffs. We beat Pittsburgh twice in a row in Pittsburgh in the playoff game. I mean, it couldn't have got any better than that. We put up a good fight, I think, against Kansas City the following week, but we had no defense. I mean, you can't win without a defense. And Stefanski, for all his good qualities, just can't get past replacing Woods with somebody who's more aggressive. We need an offensive coordinator that's going to call the plays and free him up to be the head coach and to manage the last 2 minutes of the game. I can't remember a season where games came down to the last 2 minutes, including last night, or when Jacksonville decided or were losing in the fourth quarter in the last 3 minutes of the game, and what you call who they play? Who were they playing last night? Jacksonville against anyway, whoever they're playing, somebody will remind me. But anyway, they
The
they
Titans?
decided to pass the ball with 3 minutes to go in the game, and they knocked it out of his hand. They
Yeah.
fumbled. The guy scooped it up, and he goes in and he wins, and they win like 20 to 16 or whatever.
Man.
I can't. You have to manage that last 2
I'll be right
minutes.
back, guys. Yeah, go ahead and continue. I'll be right back.
Okay. So, I mean, you got to free up Stefanski to be the head coach, and playing, the offensive coordinator. Those two roles for me is inappropriate at this point with the Browns. They should get an offensive coordinator, guys creative, call creative plays in the red zone on the 5-yard line. I mean, I can't remember a season where we failed so many times at that close because we just ran stupid up the middle plays or double handoffs or whatever. And it's just so disappointing to see that. So make the changes in the offseason. Get a defensive guy, get an offensive coordinator, make some trades, get some free agents, get the defense so that Watson doesn't have to score 35 to 40 points a game. I'm reading some of the chat here. We got through the season without too many bad calls against us, as far in comparison to prior years where we were just screaming at the TV and the refs and the bad calls, play after play after play. The flags are flying. I mean, we need another wide receiver. We're going to lose Hunt and get nothing. He's just going to become a free agent, and he'll be gone in the wind. And we got no first round pick. So unless we trade and do something to get that first round pick, we're going to be sitting there with our our thumb up. With nothing to do, nothing to look forward to. So it's a sad commentary on the ownership, including Stefanski as the coach, and that he could have coached better. We know Woods could have coached better. Special teams didn't complain as much this year as prior years, but that could be a lot better, that's for sure. A lot of these draft choices just have not panned out very well. And so you can blame a lot of that on the GM, but it's sort of depressing when you root for a team that long. You invest in jerseys and hats and tickets to go to the game, and then you see them play the way they play. I get Titans. That's who they were playing the other night, and I feel bad for them. Talk about a team that just collapses out of nowhere several times this year. The Titans are a team sort of like the Browns. They can't figure it out. They got a great running back. Quarterback is a big question. Their defense plays good one week, they play terrible the next week. So it's there's a lot of teams that are in our boat, maybe 10 plus, that need a quarterback. Well, we don't need a quarterback, but I mean, they need a quarterback. They need to make changes. They're gonna change their head coach. Denver's looking at Sean Payton, who would be a great pickup for them. I don't know if they'll stay with Wilson or not, but they're paying him a lot of money, and they're committed to him unless they can trade him to some other team. But so they're sort of in disarray at the quarterback. But a head coach can change that. Bring in a new philosophy, a new strategy. You coach around the qualities that the quarterback has, and I'm sure Stefanski can do that with Watson next year. I mean, he's obviously the highest paid football player. He's got the talent. We'll see some of that today, maybe, and maybe we won't. But can you imagine next year if they come out, even if they do improve the defense, and Watson does not play well for whatever reason? He loses maybe somebody on the offensive line. His wide receivers don't perform. The play calling is suspect, whatever. And he just doesn't play well because he's sort of rusty, although he'll have all summer and spring training to get ready. So he should be in pretty good shape. All his legal battles should be over. That shouldn't be a distraction for him anymore. So, but the fans will just eat him up if he does not play well, or the organization does not play well next year. Uh, it's just really just disappointing to invest that much time and energy with our channel. And I got Mike, who's a diehard Browns fan, and met a lot of nice people through the process over the years, which is great. And you wear the hat, especially if the Browns are doing well. You wear the hat in town, and people say, "Oh, you're a Browns fan." Blah 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 blah. So, but those few little glimpses this year were terrible. I mean, to have that few and not be able to perform, and to catch up to Kansas City, to Buffalo, to the NFC top teams. We got a ways to go. We're not just one player away or one game away. We have a lot to do, and I just hope this move with Bernie is terrible. I mean, I just feel so bad for him. I mean, the fact that they gave number 19 out to a linebacker, they should have retired it. He should have been put up on the ring there. Clay Matthews should be in the Hall of Fame. Some of these guys. I mean, it just speaks to the organization, and I guess it's Haslam. I mean, he had to approve that. They must have been so disappointed in Bernie to do that to him, at the end. I mean, I just think that's horrible.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Well, anyway, guys, we're getting close to the game time. We got 8 minutes, so we're probably gonna cut it short here.
Yep.
Thank you guys for being here. Thank you guys for being here for all season.
That's for sure.
We will see how it goes next year, and we'll take it from there. So without that, 2022 is going to be in the books here in a second. So thank you guys all very, very much, and we'll see you soon. Go Browns.
All right. Go Brownies as best you